everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the Live Music Project 7th Annual Lecture Concert. If this is your first time joining us for an event, welcome. If this is not your first time and you've been with us before, welcome back. We have been on many different stages. This is just another one of them. And gosh, it's great to be here with you today. Just really making my day. I am Shaya Lyon. I am the founder and director of the Live Music Project, and I am here in Seattle with my delightful friend, Kiesha Garrison.
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Kiesha. I'm Director of Communications and Culture for the AI Platform Engineering team at Microsoft. I'm also a special events host, and I just so happen to be one of the founding board members of the Live Music Project. So I'm so honored to be here today, and thank you so much, Shaya, for having me as your co-host for this 7th annual extravaganza.
It's so good to have you here.
Awesome. Well, before we begin the agenda and the formal program we have here today, I want to start us out with acknowledging the land that we're having our program come to you from. Now, in classical music, we know that we're always part of a very long history that continues on today. We're always in communion with folks like Bach and Chevalier St. George, even as we uplift new voices. Now, with that in mind, it is important for us to recognize how we've come to reside on the land we're on and its long history with the indigenous people to whom the land belongs. So I would like to begin this gathering by showing respect and acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this event takes place. Now, our virtual stage is in 4 different places in the Pacific Northwest. We've got Bellevue, South Seattle, South Lake Union. We've got oh, hold on. I had Redmond, Washington here, but we have another location, Shai. I think I messed up with the other location we have.
I believe it's Port Ludlow.
Yes, you are correct. So these 4 different locations are on the traditional land of the Stillaquamish tribe, the Duwamish tribe, the Sammamish tribe, the Snoqualmie tribe, the Suquamish tribe, the Muckleshoot tribe, the Snohomish tribe, the Tulalip tribe, and other Coast Salish tribes. We honor their elders, both past and present, and we invite you, wherever you are, to take a moment to recognize the original stewards of the land on which you stand. Learn more about them. Consider the work that you can do today to support the Indigenous people in your area. Now, with that, I would love for you, Shaya, to tell us a little bit about today's celebration and what we all have in store for us.
Thank you, Kiesha. Well, we are here to celebrate, like I said, the 7th birthday of the Live Music Project, which is a Seattle-based organization dedicated towards supporting access to the arts and access to information about the arts and arts community. I'll give you a little rundown of our program for this evening. First, we're going to have a lecture and followed by some questions by Michelle Montgomery. Then we have an intermission. We'll spend some time with flutist Leanna Keith. And then we'll have an after party. And throughout the evening, we will be having some fundraising activities on our Docs page. A few comments about that. All along the way, I invite you to comment in the YouTube chat. We will be interacting with your comments along the way. We may post some questions for the Q&A. And we might share some of the comments on screen throughout the afternoon as well. We will have a fundraiser ongoing throughout the evening. Sorry, it's not evening. Here in the Pacific Northwest. We'll be having a fundraiser throughout the afternoon, and you can find the link to that fundraising page in the YouTube description, as well as some details about our event tonight. We have a little bit of a delay, which you're probably very well familiar with at this point, between where we are on stage in our various home stages and where you are in YouTube land. So if you notice any, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff, that's what's going on there. And the last thing I want to say is just thank you very much to the anonymous birthday consortium that we have today that has underwritten the appearances of our incredible performer, speaker, and co-hosts. You are as wonderful as you are anonymous, and I'm so grateful to you.
Wonderful. I love this, Shaya. I love to take a moment before we even begin to dig into everything today to learn a little bit about or to share with some of the people who are on the line today about the programs that the Live Music Project offers. So if you will indulge me and share a little bit about first the Live Music Project calendar with over 15,000 concerts listed, where it all began. Tell us a little bit about the calendar.
Yes. So I believe, and LMP is really built on the idea that access to the arts begins with access to information about the arts. And when we talk about arts access, there are many kinds of access. So we have financial access, cultural access, can you get there on a bus, things like that. We also have an information access flow, and that is, how do people find out about what's happening in the arts, and how do people tell their community of potential listeners what that is. So I believe art shouldn't just be for people who are in the know. And I believe audiences shouldn't just be for organizations that have marketing teams. So you should be able to find out about live tuba music if you love the tuba without knowing about the different symphonies in your city or brass organizations in your city. And you should be able to, as any sort of artist or ensemble, tell people about the music that you're making, whether or not you have a marketing team or a degree in publicity or something like that, or a publicist. So what we try to do with this calendar from the very, very beginning is connect those dots. You've got music that's being made, you've got people who want to hear it, and how do we get them together? And the way we do that is through an online calendar, which gives people access to this information. And anybody who wants to can submit a concert to this calendar, whether they are a publicist for a solo violinist or a high school student putting on a recital. Those concerts are all welcome on our calendar, as long as they involve some sort of classical and contemporary classical music.
I love it. I know I've seen so much more music than I probably would have when I moved to Seattle because of the Live Music Project calendar. So thank you for that. Now, there's something that you're up to that's a little bit new to me. It's called Incognito. Can you enlighten your friend Kiesha?
That's right. So music access starts at a very young age, or it can start at a very young age. So we were lucky enough to work with a donor who really wanted to support young artists in Seattle. And so what we did was we started a grant called Incognito to be able to support that. And our very first grant went to the Seattle Music Partners. And I'm going to read to you because I don't memorize their entire description, but they're really cool. So I'm going to read to you. Seattle Music Partners, right. They cultivate a diverse and vibrant music-making community by providing youth with low-cost music instruction and one-on-one mentoring to eliminate racial and economic barriers to quality music education. And they have been doing this throughout the entire last year digitally, which is really phenomenal. And what they did was they were able to use our grant to hire additional teaching artists to add classes for 46 more students. So that was pretty incredible to see, and we're looking forward to all our future grants with that work. And you'll hear a little bit more from those students a little bit later.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Now, one last thing I want to ask you about, which is something that we're going to be interacting with quite a bit today for the program we have here. Talk to us about dots.
Okay, so, well, let's start with a story. Kiesha, do you remember that fateful day when the very early LMP board met in my living room and gave me a challenge? Do you remember what that was?
The challenge was to raise $10,000. That's what the challenge was. I do remember.
Do you remember my face when you said those words? Or I believe it was Andrew Goldstein.
Yes, it was not me. It was Andrew. I think your face was the opposite of that little Michelle Tanner gif where she's like, "You got it, dude." Your face was not that.
So there was a long version of the story and the short version of the story. And I'll just tell you the short version. That is that when my board challenged me to raise $10,000 in a year, and I had never raised $1 for any nonprofit before, I got out my phone and I divided 365. Well, I divided 10,000 by 365 to see what that would look like on a daily basis. And it came down to about $27 a day. And I thought, okay, I don't know how to ask for $1,000 or $10,000, but I can ask a friend for $25 to support this work that we're doing. And so I set a goal for myself to ask one person every day for $25. And that worked out really, really well. And we met the goal within, I think it was 3.5 months. And thanks to all those very early supporters of Live Music Project who went for that early ask. But where that led ultimately was, how could we find a way to support lots of organizations that have the same challenge, that are early on in their fundraising goals? They don't necessarily have experience. How could we help them break that down, make it easier and maybe even fun to tell their story? So we built Dots, which you'll find the link for Dots in the YouTube description, which is a platform that any organization can use to make a page that's a fundraiser, that can break the amount that they're looking to raise into small pieces and sort of tell the story of their art by displaying each small broken down contribution on the page in a way that represents their stage. So in our case today, our stage looks like the letters L and P, and orchestras, several of them have used this to sort of lay out their entire orchestral seating chart on the stage. You can see here are the violins, here are the basses, and so on and so forth. So a dozen or so organizations have already used Dots to raise funds and tell their story in that sort of like a fun, interactive way. And one bonus during COVID has been that venues have shut down, but they were able to sort of create a virtual venue on their Dots fundraising page by embedding their performance on that page. So it helped bring those audiences together with their storytelling in that way.
That is so cool. Like just breaking it down, making it kind of adorable, to be honest. Dots is adorable and doing such good work for a good cause. So I love it. We're going to be working with Dots today for our fundraising goal that we have. So I want to hear more about the goal that we have today.
So our goal today, our goal several years ago, that first goal was $10,000 in a year. And we have grown since then. We have more staff, more reach, more audiences in more geographical locations. We are supporting more people with more programs, more. And all this takes lots of energy and time and support from every corner. And so now we are trying to raise, I will just say we are raising $10,000 in 1 week. That is this week. And that is where you come in. You may wonder how we're going to do this. You will visit a bit.ly link that is very convenient. That is bit.ly/birthdaylove2021. So birthdaylove 2021. And you will find yourself a button on that page that you want to sponsor. There's a lot of instruments. There's some interesting keys of music. There may be some interesting phenomena, scales, all kinds of funny stuff. Browse around, find something you like, and click one of them to sponsor for $25. So each of those dots, each of those buttons, it's a little different. If you look on a computer, you'll see the full array. If you look on a mobile phone, it's more of a list. But there are lots of things to sponsor for $25 if you really want to go for it. You can make a donation of $100 or more on the mic drop button or the more cowbell button. You can choose to be anonymous if you like. You can use Apple Pay. If you're using Safari, you can use Google Pay. If you're using Chrome, you can use your phone. You can use your computer, whatever it is you like. If you want to send us a check, we're happy to receive a check. So send us a message and we will give you our address. You can find it on our donate page. In any case, you are the key to this incredible growth that we've had over the last 7 years and this incredible growth in the new goal that's not making me blink of $10,000 because I know we can do it.
That part. All right.
Oh, can I add one more thing? We have a security measure in place. Please refresh the Dots page before you donate, before you sponsor. It's important so we don't have certain kinds of technological collisions along the way. It's just a good thing. Refresh, you'll see the number go up. It'll be fun.
Yes, it will be fun to refresh, see the number go up, celebrate, make sure donations aren't colliding with one another. Fantastic. This is going to be fun checking the Dots page as we go along the program today. So with that, are we ready to introduce our speaker for the afternoon? We keep saying evening because we usually have these events in the evening, but I have the pleasure of now introducing our speaker for the afternoon. Bioethics and critical race theory speaker, Dr. Michelle Montgomery, who'll be coming to us from Port Ludlow. She is an associate professor at the University of Washington, Tacoma for the School of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences in American Indian Studies and Ethnic, Gender, and Labor Studies. She is also the Assistant Director for the Office of Undergraduate Education and the Indigenous Curriculum and Community Advisor for the School of Education. Okay, Dr. Montgomery's research focuses on indigenizing and decolonizing the climate justice narrative, environmental ethics connected to Indigenous peoples' identities, and eco-critical race theory to eliminate racial and environmental oppression. All of that I would summarize as saying she is not playing around with us with the work she is doing. Okay, she will speak to us today about reciprocity in love and self-love. So I'm so excited about this topic, and I hope that you all are too. Get your questions ready for her because we will be having Q&A after her remarks. So get those questions into the YouTube chat, and she'll answer a few at the end of the talk. With that, over to you, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territories in which I'm currently residing, and it's that of the Suquamish Nation. And I work, practice, and really uplift the communities in which I work with at University of Washington Tacoma on the Puyallup traditional territories. And it's such an honor to be here. And first, I just wanted to just say Pila Hagwado for bringing your spirit with us today. I know that in these moments of stillness that we've been experiencing because of the pandemic, we all have heavy hearts and we are just navigating each day the best that we can. So I just want to say my hands up to you and blessings to you and to your families to always stay safe. But one of the important things that I want to start off with, it's really talking about two of, I would say, people in my life who've actually kept me putting one foot in front of the other. And as a person who identifies as Indigenous with the mixed race identity, I'm also a historical legacy from a graduate from a historically Black college and university. Every person in my family, as an undergraduate, it is a must, it's mandatory that you attend an HBCU. And in all those different stories that come with being attached to HBCUs as a Southeastern Indigenous mixed race person, it also comes with the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and also another hero of mine, Dr. Cornel West. And so when I think what I want to talk to you about today is the reciprocity of love and self-love. And I think some people really miss the discursive practices around that, and I think for brown and Black bodies and those that navigate BIPOC and intersectionalities, self-love has a different meaning to it when we really unpack that. So when I talk about the reciprocity of love and self-love, I'm coming from this specific quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. And he says, justice should roll down like water, right? And if we change that out to say love, self-love, and the reciprocity of love should roll down like water, then we're honoring justice, because justice really is about acknowledging your worth. And so as an Indigenous person, we are taught two things. One is to remember the teachings of our more than human relatives, and the other is to protect them. And when I think of the struggles that many of us have learned through oral traditions and oral stories of how this nation has been developed on the bones of Indigenous ancestors and the backs of slaves, I think it's really important that when we talk about love, that we also talk about justice, because it's really hard to hold that self-love and that reciprocity of love close to where it should be when justice is ignored in the discursive practices when we talk about that. When I think of self-love, I think of Dr. Cornel West, and I think about what justice means. And justice means that, and self-love is to allow suffrage to speak, regardless of how you navigate your spaces, what your lived experiences are. All of us hear, see, think, move, navigate our spaces differently based on our lived experiences. And I think for self-love and this time and era of all the violence that we've experienced, and it's up front and center, in particular after January the 6th, and the unfortunate demise of Mr. George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, to name just a few, and missing and murdered Indigenous women, it's hard to sometimes bring you back to center and ask yourself, what is love? What is self-love? And how can we even get there when we're still healing? And I think a lot of misconceptions of love is that love is an everyday action. It's an every second of the day, right? So when we talk about decolonization, some people misconstrue that as that there's a one step all check box and all of a sudden you're decolonized. No, decolonization is an everyday act. And so justice should be intertwined with self-love and the reciprocity of love based on these very same words. And so Dr. Cornel West says, if your success is defined as being well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference, then we don't want successful leaders. We grant great leaders who we want, right? Who love people enough to be unbought, unbound, unafraid, and unintimidated to tell the truth. And the truth is, in order to see justice through, there's that reciprocity of always, for those of us who've made 10 step forwards, you have your arm back to pull the rest with you and your hand in front of you to hold the others up, right? That's the reciprocity of love. And to understand the struggles of justice, you understand the struggles of how we need to change the discursive practices of acknowledging that self-love must be part of justice. Love must be part of justice. And I'm very honored to be here to say that I stand on the shoulders of a family tradition that is rooted in Wayman, which is an African-American Episcopal church. My grandfather's church was St. Paul Baptist Church in Enfield, North Carolina. And I remember listening to many of those sermons, really talking about what is love? How do we love thy neighbor? And how do we move beyond the oppressions that we as a nation, as people have experienced, really to dig deep and find in this world of stillness, how do we reconnect virtually to share that love? Some of the things that my grandfather, who has always taught me, and Dr. Cornel West says this as well, is that, and I'm putting a twist on what Dr. Cornel West says because this comes from my grandfather. He would always says that in order to really love yourself and to share love, you have to allow suffrage to speak. Suffrage is directly connected to justice, right? And I think when we think of self-love, sometimes that gets caught up in the back burner because there's these micro and macro types of aggressions that happen, right? Where you're always having to put yourself in the flame, but you can only do so much of that love for yourself and for others if your cup is full. And so one of my favorite quotes also is this, and I really ask you all to really sit with this when we talk about what is reciprocity. And reciprocity really is to give a voice to those who've been silenced and erased. If your self-love has been silenced, give it voice. When you give it voice, you share the voice of reciprocity to other people to own. How do we act, whether it's verbally in an artistic expression, poetry, whatever that may be, how do we practice self-love and share the reciprocity of love? And so here's a quote that I want to share with you. It says, many people think that being spiritual means being positive, but being spiritual means being conscious and aware. To become conscious is a much more different thing than to become positive. To become conscious and aware, we must become authentic. Self-love is about becoming, how do we become our authentic selves? How do we share the reciprocity of love with our authentic selves? And how do we bring our whole self forward? So as a lifelong student, I'm a forever student. The acronyms that I've obtained in this colonized, assimilated world does not define me. I'm a woman of color first and foremost. And I will say that when I think of these particular definitions, one of the things that's troubling to me is how do we decolonize spaces in which we share knowledge so that we understand that learning is emotional? Why is it that when we leave, say second, third grade, all of a sudden they say that learning is no longer emotional? And so that justice of bringing back emotion into place is so spiritual. And although I grew up in very structured religions, Christian religions, I'm a spiritual person, I will say, and I'm on a spiritual journey. And that is to unapologetically always ask the question, what does justice demand? Justice demands that we are allowed to bring our whole selves, our whole spiritual selves. And I'm really excited to be with this audience today because I think more and more people really need to talk about spirituality. We need to embrace that. What is that journey? It's not the same journey for everyone. It changes. Just like you grow, right? And you change as you age, as you learn and see the world around you. That's the reciprocity of love. You know, how do we hold space for people? How do we hold space for people and not judge? And I think, you know, as a critical race theorist, one of the things that, you know, I'm always looking for is the isms, right? But I think it's also important to be able to gracefully call people into conversation. And that grace is also love, right? To have grace and humility and empathy is also practicing the reciprocity of love, because we can't just engage into someone and ask them, what is their spiritual journey for self-love? And how do we continuously tie that to a justice lens? And what does that mean to us, right? So as an Indigenous person, I have an inherent responsibility to place. And as a Southeasterner, mixed race Indigenous person from North Carolina, like being in the Pacific Northwest means that there's a million times fold of reciprocity of respect that I must apply to place. And that means that, you know, I go out and say my morning prayers. I say prayers twice a day, when the sun comes up and when the sun is going down, rain, sleet, or snow. I feed the water, you know, trees are considered to be my guardians. And when I think of people navigating spaces differently, I think we can learn so much about the reciprocity of love if we can gracefully call people into conversation. And I think that, you know, many of us often feel vulnerable when we do that. We feel vulnerable even using the word love. We feel vulnerable even using the word spirituality. We feel vulnerable even using the word emotional, because we have experienced on so many levels lateral violence, whether it's toxic masculine violence or is the lateral violence of being othered, right? And so when I think of love and the reciprocity of sharing love, you know, I often have to sit back as that critical race theorist person and say, you know, what type of experiences have this person endured for them to be where they are, right? How can I tell them a story? Because, you know, stories is a great way to call people into conversation. And how can I encourage them to be open to share a story with me? So the reciprocity of love, as my grandfather and my late Aunt Jenny would always say, that everyone has a story to tell. It's just a matter of creating a space, a safe space for everyone to tell their story. To tell a story is holding space for love. To hold an audience, to actually infuse the word, share your story with me, you're not imposing on them a form of erasure. You're actually imposing on them a form of justice. I'm uplifting you. I want you to tell me your story. I want you to be exactly who you are. And in many of my classes, you know, I always ask my students, bring your whole self. I don't want part of you. You know, there's some days where you may have to tuck that certain part away, but in my classrooms and in my spaces and any type of talkings that I do with people, as us Southerners say, talkings, you know, I welcome your whole self. As an Indigenous person, I'm taught that when we speak, everyone that's with us right now in this virtual reality, you are sacred. You are so sacred. You are created in the eyes of the Creator, which means that the air, everyone breathes air. The air is sacred. So if you breathe the air, that makes you sacred, no matter what someone says to you. My teachings has taught me, coming from a long line of activists, a strong legacy of attending historically Black colleges and university and honoring the sum of all my parts, has been really about how do we keep the story moving forward? How do we uplift people? How do we remind people that they stand on the shoulders of so many ancestors that people shouldn't really be able to touch you, even if they physically put your hands on you. So we're taught that when I speak, all of my relations are speaking with me. It is no coincidence that we are here together today. It is no coincidence that I chose the reciprocity of love and self-love, right? Because in order for us to move beyond a lot of the things that we really want to change, and that's have these more loving relationships with people, it really is moving outside of the I, me, my, and where's the we? Let's talk about the we. And the we for a lot of people is that whole self, right? Many of us wear different hats during the day, and many of us feel like when we hop into certain situations, we have to wear this hat or we have to wear that hat, tuck that hat away. We can't show that. But I'm in a position where I really feel wear all your hats, bring your whole self, because you need to love yourself for exactly who you are. And one of the things that my great aunt has always reminded me, she said that imperfections are beautiful. And I believe that. Like, there is no person on this planet that's perfect. If we aspire for perfection, we're missing out on the love that how we were created. My late Aunt Jenny and I, we look identical, right? And oh my goodness, how did that happen? You know, and it's something about the legacy. It's the legacy of your bloodline. It's the legacy of place. It's the legacy of knowledge. And, you know, those of us that come from, you know, brown and black bodies, we really have navigated this world through story. Everything is through story. One of my favorite jazz vocalists is Jimmy Scott, you know, and I grew up listening to jazz. I grew up listening to blues. And when I think of the stories of how they resonated with me and different members of my family, it's powerful. It's that self-love of remembering, right? How do you create those graceful vibrations to welcome someone's whole self? And I would say to you, the message that I want to leave for you today is unapologetically always bring your whole self. Unapologetically remember that self-love is justice, right? Sharing the reciprocity of love is justice, and it's unapologetic. You should never have to apologize for self-love. Always be unapologetic and remember where you come from. Biggest lesson I learned in life is that in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you come from. Never forget your roots. Never forget your roots. The role is always, when you talk about the reciprocity of love and self-love, is the service to the people. Whoever the people are and how you define that, that's your service, right? For me, it's my more than human relations and human relationships. It's serving, uplifting. One of the biggest questions that I've always been asked, even from a child, is what kind of human being do I want to be remembered as? Do I want to be remembered as the person that, you know, did X or Z? And I've been taught in all of my rich family culture that your wealth is defined on who you can call on when you're in need. Your wealth is defined based on how many people can say that your word is your bond. Your wealth is defined on how many people can say that when they reached out to you, you unapologetically said, sure, I'd love to spend time with you. I'd love to engage with you and build community. Unapologetically is always have a sense of self, of service to each other. That's love. Love is not individual. Love is not just two people. Love is universal. Everything happens like the butterfly effect. What happens on one side of the world impacts everyone here, right? So the pandemic, one issue happened in one point of the world, created a whirlwind of change. And I have been reminded over and over and over again that this stillness is an opportunity for us to relearn how to sit with ourselves, to relearn how to calm our storms, whatever those storms are. Learn to love the lessons in those storms. The reciprocity of love, as my grandfather would always try to remind me, is that, you know, the biggest mistake we as human beings can make is to try to teach people lessons that they're not ready to learn. We cannot force lessons that should be learned. We can't just, you know, layer upon layer, put all of these different lessons on top of people, because we're all here for specific reasons. We all have our own destinies. We all have something to contribute. So when we talk about self-love, it's also to remember who shaped you. Who shaped you to become the person that you are today? Who was always there for you? And I think that, you know, at my age, when I was younger, I would look back and go, oh, it's just not happening fast enough. Oh my goodness, I just need to do something else. But see, the Creator has it set up for things don't happen to us during human time. It's called patience, right? Things, when we think about love and self-love, when we think about justice as a part of bringing our whole selves, that spirituality, it happens when it's supposed to happen. It's those aha moments that you have when you're driving down the road or you're walking somewhere or you hear a song and you think it's deja vu, or you go, oh, I remember that, right? It's all those lessons that come together that make you so whole, right? And I think self-love is also acknowledging that being whole does not mean that it's not okay to cry. Crying is beautiful. You know, mourning is beautiful. And I think one of the things that when I say learning should be emotional, I think, you know, the settler colonial narratives around education have said that, you know, when we talk about grief and we talk about spirit, that it's instantly, you know, a sad thing. Grief is beautiful. It's growth. And, you know, as I was recently reminded by my cousin Tony, he said, you know, we grow the most when we're in discomfort. When you're uncomfortable, that's when you're going to grow, because those are the lessons that you're going to see around you, whether they're positive or negative, right? There's growth all around you. But in order to grab that growth, in order to understand that it's not about destruction, it's not about breaking you, but it's about making you stronger, then we see the light, right? And I would say that there's so many other things that we must remember to be true to ourselves about. And, you know, when I think of what does it mean to be a person of color, right? Particularly from the South, being in the Pacific Northwest, it's a total different experience. And I'm constantly reminding myself, what do we do when we're in these unique places to acknowledge that love comes in different forms? The way that I'm going to love myself, the way that I'm going to navigate this space. And how do you have conversations around justice and love? And I think we need to have more of that. We need to have more transparent, welcoming conversations about what does it mean to bring in the word justice when we talk about love. And going back to Dr. Martin Luther King's quote, justice should roll down like water. Let's take justice out. Let's say love should roll down like water. Let's say that self-love should roll down like water, right? Let's say that grace, to call people into a conversation, should roll down like water. And we should always acknowledge that we come from a long legacy of ancestors that have really given us the platform to stand on their shoulders and to do exactly what we're doing right now. And what I want to do now, if I may say, is to, I don't know if I'm jumping off cue, but I would like to have more of a bi-directional conversation about self-love and reciprocity and how to, and what does justice means when we talk about these particular things. Is that okay to do that?
I absolutely think it's okay to do that. We have a few questions in the chat, but if there are specific things that you want to kind of prompt those folks who are listening to think about, we can absolutely do that as well.
I think that, when I think, boy, as a Southerner, right? I grew up with family members who applied to UNC Chapel Hill and some of these other institutions, and they were denied admittance because of their race. And I think of January the 6th and how horrified my grandfather would have been as a loyal member of St. Paul Baptist Church and being a part of the walk and the struggle back in the day. And so what I want to do is, how do we gracefully call each other to change Dr. King's quote, where we say justice rolls down like water? What word could we replace that with? Right. And I think my life was changed. Like, I've seen a lot of things coming from the South, but my life was changed the day I saw Mr. George Floyd's unfortunate murder being advertised as if it was not a human. Right. And so then I kept asking myself, what if that was my brother? That's somebody's son, that's somebody's father. And I kept thinking about, now, how can I reach out to my brothers and sisters around the world and say, love yourself? You cannot react based on someone else's negativity. How did you find the glow, right? And so I always go back to Dr. Martin Luther King's quote, how justice should roll down like water. To me, if we could change that to love, and I think that would be just powerful, right?
So powerful. And I think about the way that you were describing some of the things that you do to love yourself. You're even just saying things like the trees are your guardians, the praying 2 times a day. I think that the ways that we've been taught to regard our worth have been tied to things like productivity, our relationship to what we do inside of the capitalist machine. But the ways that you described loving yourself had nothing to do with achievements and such. How did you get to that place where you knew what you needed to feel your own love?
I grew up on a family farm. And we didn't have a lot growing up. It was just, summertime, you didn't wear shoes. You go to school, you wear shoes, right? And so when I went off to college, I was like, okay, now are you like, this is crazy. Like, I don't need all of that. And I will say, I went to North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University, and one of the buildings still have remnants of bullet holes from the National Guard shot through the building. And my grandfather used to visit me in college as much as he could. He would surprise me, and I couldn't believe he would drive all the way to Greensboro from Enfield, North Carolina. And it was that moment that made me realize that when he would bring, I don't know if y'all know about A&P grocery store, but he would bring pre-cooked food and he would come visit me. And that was my worth. And I said, if my grandfather grew up in an era where he had to go through a back door, well, bad things could happen to people of color and no one could be held accountable. All I need is this. And he would always tell me, he would say, you don't need all those shiny things. He said, let me tell you why. He says, when you come home, what do you have? I said, fried fish and cornbread. He says, what makes you happy? I said, that food. And he says, it's just not that food. It's the love that was put into the food that nourished your soul. And I think those conversations with my grandfather really always resonated with me. How do I nourish my soul? Is that good for me? Is that bad for me? And my best friends and I, that's all we do. We're always talking about, how do we uplift the next generation to understand the nourishment of the soul? And I'm fortunate. My dad was a single parent, and we were these feral kids running around. And so I was reared by my grand relatives, and so I was Dennis the Menace. And so I always had someone telling me a story about something, right? One of the biggest stories I remember is, don't throw rocks, that's your elder. And when you think about that, how long have rocks been around? And and now I go, oh, when I see kids skipping rocks, it terrifies me, right? But trees were my babysitters, and I was always taught to ground myself at the base of a tree. And now Western science, and we woodland natives know this all along, but Western science now says that trees communicate with each other. We know that they've always done that. There is a reason why when we go for walks that we feel great. It's not because you had cardiovascular exercise, it's because the trees have released enough medicine for you to get you through the day. And for me, it's the simple things. It's being able to pick up the phone and call my great aunt who's 94. It's being able to call my mentor, Dr. Raynor, who's one of 2 Black professors that was hired at UW Tacoma in 1996, and say, Auntie, that's kind of making me feel kind of somehow, and I think that's messy. So how should I deal with this, right? And it's about calling me back in and say, is that going to become you, or are you going to become it? Those are those conversations that we have. But to me, the natural world is something that we're all connected to. It's just not indigeneity. Yeah. You are an organic being. You're organically connected to place.
Mm-hmm. That's a great opening for one of the questions that someone did ask. We have just a couple I want to ask you. Someone was asking about how do we think about respect for places and how that relates to how we love each other. So you think about the fact that we have all been in our own cocoons a little bit during this quarantine time, and pretty soon we'll be going back out into places and in community, in physical locations where we haven't been. How do we think about being better stewards of the places where we find ourselves and how that relates to how we love other people?
Right. That's a beautiful question. So Pilla Wado for asking that. That's it. That is really the soul searching that I hope that each individual person has really thought about. There's a reflection, right? There's a reflection that we're all needing to do in this stillness. This stillness just didn't happen for just to happen. There's a reason, right? And I was telling my great aunt, I said, we're living the Old Testament. And when I think about the reciprocity of place, the respect of place, you first got to respect yourself. You got to love yourself. When I think of unhealthy relationships, right? There's a certain type of unhealthy codependency that we need to really think about, right? So if the unhealthy relationship to place is having a codependency to things that are not healthy for place, then we have to renegotiate where that love is for yourself, right? I find it interesting that incarcerated people, regardless, spend more time outside than our children in public schools. The place of finding new connection to place is, as my Uncle Wildcat would say, if you learn in a box, you think in a box. So if in order for you to reconnect yourself, you need to go outside and read your.
I had to lean back.
Go outside. But it's true. If you learn in a box,
you'll think in a box.
That's right. So if you are outside, seeing beyond the 4 walls, which they want many of us to think that's where we belong. If you're outside, thinking outside, moving outside, being healthy, doing the things that you love, it really changes your relationship to place, because place is nurturing you. You are nurturing place. Everything's bi-directional. And I tell people all the time, when we come back outside of the stillness, there's no new normal, right? There's a whole different way we have to walk to our beat. But I will say this, that many of us need to practice smiling more. It's free.
Hello.
Right? We also need to practice, and here's the Southerner me coming out. When you see our elders, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, whatever, it does not hurt anyone to open the door for an elder. Yeah. It does not hurt anyone if you see an elder that is about to cross the street to ask them, regardless if they may be afraid of you, do you need help? Can I just monitor you as you walk across the street? Single parents with kids do what kids do, right? Ask can I help you? Yeah. There's all these things that we need to do to be more, to rehumanize ourselves. Our actions have been dehumanized. Yes. You have to rehumanize your actions. And I have always been taught although I've other mothered many kids in my life as a, and still do. If that was my child or my relative, how would I want the world to welcome them? So when it doesn't matter where I am, how do I want to welcome them? They're my family, like I'm here. So what do I do? And I think that's really important. We talk about place. So we know that, from a Western science perspective, everything has breath. When you are in place, you share sacred air with your more than human relatives. If that air is sacred, they are sacred. Humans are the most fragile living entity on this earth. We're very fragile. And everything around us has a little more endurance than we do, right? And so when we think about how fragile we are, I think we need to have a little more grace. And I think that's important. But I would say we have to really think about, how do we decolonize and rehumanize our actions, right? Because that's deep. If you think about how long you've learned in a box, how do you think out of a box? What are your steps to get out of the box? What are your steps to knock down the walls in the box? And I think growing up where I grew up with people. I went to elementary school and all that stuff with people from my community. And there was always an elder in our classroom. We were always outside. And then, as we fast forward time, our young adults are inside all the time. You're inside, locked into technology. And I think many of us need those other mothering, other aunties and uncles down the street, because I don't see that a lot. I want that to come back, whether we have the neighborhood barbecue. Like, I want that to come back. Like, I do. I want people to feel safe that when their kids are going off to walk to school or get the bus stop, that Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so down the street is watching them too. I think that's really important.
That's beautiful. And you mentioned grace a couple of times, and I want to do this one last question to you before we move into the next part of our program. But as I think about people learning in the box, other people that we encounter are also learning in the box as well, and extending grace, understanding that. You mentioned calling people into conversation gracefully. Can you give an example of doing that as we kind of wrap up here today, thinking about how we interact? How do we gracefully call someone into a conversation?
Gracefully calling someone into a conversation is, you also have to be comfortable in your own skin, right? How can you you really have to be comfortable in your own skin, right? You have to be comfortable with the sum of all your parts, whether they're fractured, whether they're polished, or whether they're growing. You have to be comfortable with the sum of your parts, but also be vulnerable enough to gracefully call someone in the conversation to learn about their journey, right? And here's something I always share with my little cousins, and they go, "Oh, here she goes." I said, it's like the movie The Matrix. Are you going to take the red pill, or are you going to take the blue pill? So now that we know that it's important that we need to practice love, self-love, reciprocity, grace, all those different things, rehumanize our actions, which pill are you going to take? The one that keeps you in the room with the four walls, or are you going to move beyond that and take the other pill and realize that the matrix is exactly what it is? You can free yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the self-love part. Free yourself.
That is so beautiful. Free yourself. That's where we're going to leave it. Thank you so much, Dr. Montgomery, for blessing our ears and our spirits with this guidance today. So appreciate you being here with us.
Feel a hug. Thank you.
Kiesha, all those memories. We shared so many great moments.
It was really nice to see. So nice to see those moments from all those years. We've been at it.
7 years is not nothing. One of the things that Michelle said that really stuck with me was something being greater than the sum of its parts, and the importance of what that means. And I just one of the great I don't know how to describe this. But one of the great effects of this is that we have worked with so many different organizations in the Seattle Puget Sound area and over the last year across the U.S. To bring concert information into the Live Music Project calendar, and that it's many, many, many small steps. Many individuals submitting that concert information, many volunteers curating and cleaning up that information, our staff putting it onto the website, and then it ends up being this amazing shared resource for our community that's so much bigger than a database or a website or any one of our individual acts. And so one of those groups that is the greater than. I guess is the parts. Sorry, I'm still digesting these thoughts. They're so deeply in me right now. So one of these groups that makes this possible is all the arts organizations that have contributed to our calendar, and they sent us some birthday cards. So let's listen to those now.
Happy birthday, Live Music Project, from your friends at Emerald City. Thanks for everything you do to make our community awesome and accessible.
Hi, Live Music Project. This is Sarah Bob with the New Gallery Concert Series. Thank you for your concert calendar and for all that you do and keeping us in touch during these crazy times.
Thank you, Live Music Project, for helping Cascade Symphony Orchestra stay connected with our audience and our community. We love you. Mwah!
Thank you, Live Music Project. Roko loves you.
Oh, that's a lot of love, Shaya. Soaking up all of that love and knowing that it's been 7 years of the Live Music Project. I'd love to hear a little bit from you about what it has meant for you, like the originator, to, what does it mean for you that this organization exists? Why do you love LMP?
I love LMP because what started for me as a little side project, really a curiosity. Is it useful if we collect all this concert information? Are people going to want to make use of it, or is it just more stuff on the internet, right? And the incredible community involvement that has taken place over the last 7 years shows me that it is definitely not just a side project. It has become much, much more than that. And it is, it's become a shared community resource. It is community made. It is for the community. And it is knitted together and continues to knit together what was already a very passionate and committed community of artists and listeners and arts administrators and people who manage venues and sets and all those things. So for me, it's just been a really invigorating experience that has shown me that you can start something and make it happen. And as long as it's useful and relevant and meaningful, it will grow.
I love that. And the fact that it exists, and because it exists with the humans behind it that are here, like with the ethos that you have around Live Music Project, it becomes like yet another place to amplify communities that sometimes get left out. So you're being able to highlight concerts that feature artists from composers who experience systemic inequality or inequity often. Think about Black and African American composers. Think about the Indigenous composers out there, Latinx musicians and composers. The fact that you have this resource here and you have a community here focused on surfacing information and surfacing and building community gives us one more place where those people can find some light, find an opportunity to be featured and to have people learn about their work. So that's one of the reasons I love Live Music Project.
Oh, and yes, 100%. I think that sometimes when people say, oh, well, you have the power to lift up other people might think, I don't have power. I just work this day job. I just go to work every day and I eat my sandwich. Well, back when we used to get to do that, fill out some papers and go home. But the truth of the matter is we each have multiple opportunities throughout our day to uplift other voices and other people and to make space. Mm-hmm. And if you create a space that fights for equity, then you will draw people to it who want to be part of that fight. You give them a space, and you also draw people to it who want to benefit from the safe space that provides for them, where they may not be benefiting from elsewhere. And so when you create that thing that matters, you draw people to it as well that care about those same things. And so for me, it's been an incredible experience to be able to be surrounded by people who care about those things that are so important.
Yes. I've met so many of those people now. They're part of my life too.
Well, speaking of equity, we're going to come back to the Seattle Music Partners and their sweet message to us that they have created. Megan, you can roll.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. That awkward pause was brought to you by the YouTube delay and me, really. My name is Kevin Clark. I'm the board chair for the Live Music Project, and I'm here to tell you why I support the Live Music Project and why I'm inviting you to join me. I grew up steeped in classical music, and a lot of my family are actually on the stream today. I've always been a part of this artistic community. I've worked with a lot of organizations that struggle to change and to be as welcoming as we know that our organizations need to be. But Shaya and the whole Live Music Project are pure welcome. Shaya came to this music as a fan. She dreamed the musical community that we all deserve, and all of us showed up to create it with her. Over the last 7 years, the Live Music Project has grown into a thriving community organization and, yes, a suite of technologies. We've all created something special here in Puget Sound on the coast of the Salish Sea. We'd been talking about going national for years. When the pandemic hit, we went national overnight. This team converted from live in-person concerts to sharing streaming concerts from all over the globe for all over the globe. LMP shows every day that art and technology exist within communities. This team has done so much, and we're just getting started. So today, with everything happening in our communities, I ask you to join me by supporting what we all need, a musical community that's for all of us. So sponsor a dot, sponsor a dozen, sponsor a mic drop, get some more cowbell, but you cannot sponsor KeyClick's Marked Fortissimo because I already beat you to that one. I think the Spin It might still be available though. And you can find all of that in the link at the YouTube description or at bit.ly/birthdaylove2021. And my second ask to you is deeper than for financial support for LMP. It's to be that welcome that we need for the classical music community, to welcome everyone who wants to make this music to be part of it, and to make the musical world better when it so badly needs it. But in fact, my first ask is to support the Live Music Project financially today. I think there are a lot of interesting scales still available for you on the DOTS website. Thanks for being part of our community. Thanks for making it better together. And I'll send it back to Shaya and Kiesha, who hopefully will understand this technology slightly better than I did when I took over talking.
See it now. Okay, Megan, can we share my screen? Here we go. Great. Okay, so here is our dots page. And we are at 44, 25, 61 out of 169 dots sponsored. Let's do a quick refresh on that. 4450. And we've got some fun diatomic scale. Thank you, Andrea. I think it's going to be hard for you to see the details here, so I won't do too many. Lydian scale by Lynn. Hi, Lynn. So good to have you with us today. Bass clarinet. Thanks, Robert. And typewriter by Al Bass. We're going to come back to our video now. And I'm going to say if you have not yet donated and you would like to visit bit.ly/birthdaylove2021, you can hit any one of those stop buttons you like, or you can go all in on a mic drop or a more cowbell. But for now, I would like to bring us to the next segment of our afternoon, slowly becoming evening, and that is to introduce Leanna Keith. Leanna is just an incredible musician. She's a freelance flutist, an artist, an improviser, and a composer. She delights in creating sound experiences that make audiences laugh, cry, and say, "I didn't know the flute could do that." Her performance artworks have focused on cultural connection and the breaking of audience-performer boundaries. Leanna is also the professor of flute at Cornish College of the Arts. Leanna, welcome to our stage.
Hey, Shaya, and hello, Live Music Project. Thanks for having me. When I thought about this performance, I first thought about having a long-winded speech about all the things that have happened lately, but honestly, I just want to play. So I'm just going to play some music. And it would make me really happy if while I'm playing, you can write in the chat maybe some ideas that I could maybe riff on. I love to riff on and improvise based on audience participation. So as we are going today, just send some things my way. And if I like it, maybe I'll play a tune based on that. But for now. Cool. Okay. So that was that. I see that there are little chat things, so I'm going to look at them, which, you know, bye. My camera's up here. My computer's down here. So if I disappear, it's because I'm looking at what you're saying. You know, it's great. The sound of a hug from Chris Bergstrom. Chris, I'm going to send you the sound of a hug right now because I wish I could give you a hug. It's been a while, Chris. Love to send you a hug. Okay. Sound of a hug, sound of a hug, sound of a hug. Okay. Let's try this. Yeah. How's this? fun. I like that one a lot. Thanks for that suggestion, Chris. I appreciate that. I'm going to go back into the chat here. Let's see what we've got. Lots of very kind comments. Thank you very much to everybody. This is excellent. Excellent. I appreciate you all. Double smooch. Mwah, mwah. Flute space for the rest of the day. Excellent. Can I live in this flute space this spring? Yes, please. Please live in my flute space. In fact, I'm not here to plug myself, but I do have an album coming out in like a month. So you can live in my flute space very soon. In the meantime, I am going to talk about one thing. Just one thing. I'm not going to talk about a lot of things, but I'm going to talk about one thing. And the one thing that I'm going to talk about is that last weekend, Seattle lost an incredible musician, flautist, and mentor to myself by the name of Paul Taub, who was an incredible musician and person, truly, who happened to be, by the way, a very excellent bass flute player. So without getting too emotional here, I would like to improvise something for Paul. Yeah, so I'm going to do what I think, or at least things that remind me of him. Okay. I need water, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to get this water. Oh, hello. Hi. How's it going? Sometimes technology doesn't agree with me on things, as I'm sure we've all learned this year. Sometimes technology just doesn't agree. Okay. One more I hear. Okay. I'm going to look at the chat real fast. Fast. Hug received, loud and clear, lots of calls. Yes. Okay, great. I'm gonna end on a cover of a cover, which is not something that I always do, but I feel like doing this, so this is what we are doing. Okay, I'm going to do a cover of a cover, which is Carolina Ike's cover of Ennio Morricone's tune. And if you don't know Ennio Morricone, you should. So we're gonna do that. This particular tune is called Ecstasy of Gold. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's been just a pleasure. Yeah, support. Get a dot. Maybe get the alto flute dot. Otherwise, I will. All right. Okay, let's do it. Okay. Doomba, 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 Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Leanna, thank you so much. I'm in another planet right now. Just on another planet right now, as I am every time I have the pleasure of hearing you perform in person, online, in any way possible. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. It's my honor to be on the stage with you tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So we are ready. Kiesha, would you like to join us back on the stage? Well, I'm gonna just let Kiesha take her time coming back, and in the meantime, I'm just gonna do another dots update. I'm gonna refresh my screen, and we are at 4625. Thank you so much, everyone. I thank you, Alan Futterman, for the whole tone scale. Thank you, Charles Lincoln, for those tubular bells, otherwise known as chimes. This is a really good time to get those dot sponsorships in. If you are so inclined, the link is bit.ly/birthdaylove2021. This is our final call. I repeat, this is our final call for boarding the dots train.
Chugga chugga choo choo. Get on the train now.
on that train. Wow, there's been so much wonder on our stage tonight, and I'm just I'm blown away by the wisdom brought by Dr. Montgomery, the flute brought by Leanna, thoughts of Paul Taub, which have been on my mind as well over the last week. The wonder I feel at every one of these dots as it fills up is a person. It's you out there in the room with us, telling us that you believe in the work that we're doing, that you think we should be continuing to put our energies into supporting access to the arts, and that means so much to me. Kiesha, any questions? Any thoughts?
I mean, I can't wait for Leanna's album. I'm just left feeling filled with both the comments from Dr. Montgomery's, just her teachings about self-love, but then to just pour the honey of that flute all over me. It's just been a really beautiful day, and I'm excited, just like you, to see kind of where everything went, where we knitted out with dots, and how everything has gone. So I'm just eagerly looking forward to hearing how everyone has come together tonight. It's just every bit that anyone does, it's just a beautiful group effort of support towards a good cause. So I'm excited to hear how we did tonight.
It really has been a wonderful, wonderful shared effort. I think this might be time for the drum roll.
Oh,
so let's do a drum roll. And our final total for tonight is $4,650. Thank you, everyone who contributed and will continue to support us in any way going forward. We, Keisha, we gotta get something, right?
Yeah, I think we need to just grab a little something real quick.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Hold the mule for everybody. Ready, Shaya. The suspense is building as the hosts come to you from the sidelines, a voice and a faceless wonder.
Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Here we are.
We are here indeed. We are here in our formal wear. This is our formal birthday wear. Official LMP costumes. Uniforms.
And we have our cupcakes at the ready for our traditional LMP birthday cupcake toast. We hope if you have...
Wouldn't be an LMP birthday without cupcakes.
I hope if you have a cupcake at home that you're ready to toast with us to Live Music Project's 2nd birthday, 7th birthday, and many, many more. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. Your cupcake disappeared.
There it is. We're so close.
Cheers.
There it is.
Happy birthday, LMP.
Happy birthday. We need some party music. We'll get party music in a minute. Before we go, I want to say thank you so much to Michelle, to Leanna, to Kiesha, to someone you haven't seen tonight but is running everything from behind the scenes, Megan Enan, to all of you for coming and supporting us by being here. I bid you all a good night for a few minutes until we meet up again at our Zoom after party. So if you bought a ticket for this event, you have a link to the Zoom after party in your email. If you got one after the event started, I will email you that link shortly. Bring a party hat. We're going to listen to a little bit of music, say hi to friends, and just enjoy the space together. Thank you so much for coming and have a wonderful night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.